Hi, welcome to Pop Goes the Culture. Thanks for calling in. While you're waiting to be brought on the air, set up your computer or your phone or tablet properly to get the best possible picture and sound. We want you to look your best. You're going to be on TV. First, find a quiet spot with not a lot of noise, preferably away from the kids, pets, and traffic. If you have a headset, that will give you the best sound. If you're on your computer camera, don't lean in. Sit back and relax so that you're framed the same way you see people on TV, head and shoulders. You might even want to raise your computer up so that it's level with your face. Put it on a box or a book and make sure it's stable. If you're using a cell phone, see if you can get a simple cell phone tripod. They're easy to set up. If you don't have a tripod, no worries. Set the camera for selfies. Hold the phone about arm's distance from your face. Make sure it's landscape or horizontal, not portrait or vertical. Try to keep the camera level, not too high, not too low. Make sure you can see your whole face and maybe shoulders in the frame. Next, find a nice light in front of you. Never sit in front of a bright window or light source. Turn around until you find the best light and background and the shot is looking attractive. This is a good shot. This one, not so much. Don't put your head too high or too low in the shot. Your eyes should be about 1/3 down from the top of the frame. Okay, now you're looking and sounding your best, and you're ready for your close-up. Keep watching, and maybe we'll be bringing you on the show soon.
Today, a special Ask Them Yourself episode of Pop Goes the Culture. You'll have a chance to talk face-to-face with our guest. With a career spanning the entertainment, computer game, mobile, and internet worlds, he's written and produced for film and TV, been a tech startup entrepreneur, a frequent speaker on entrepreneurship, mobile marketing, domain names, and social media, and has had articles appear in Forbes, Entrepreneur, Ad Age, and others. He's been part of influencer campaigns for brands including Intel, Sony, Ford, LG, Asus, and others. Currently, he's CMO of .club Domains, operator of the new domain extension, .club. As a member of Team TROMA, the renegade lowbrow independent New York film studio, back in the 80s and 90s, he helped shape the careers of the Toxic Avenger, Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD, and others. And now, he's the author of Everything I Know About Business and Marketing I Learned from the Toxic Avenger, One Man's Journey to Hell's Kitchen and Back. And today, you'll have an opportunity to ask him yourself. Our guest today is Jeffrey Sass. Hello and welcome to Pop Goes the Culture, our very first Ask Them Yourself episode, and I'm very happy to be here today with an old friend. He's really old. Friend of mine named Jeffrey Sass, and I've already given you the whole spiel about Jeff. So,
yeah, hi David. I'd like to meet that guy you introduced. He sounds pretty interesting.
A pretty interesting guy. So Jeff, you've had quite an eclectic career. You started off in TV and film, and then you moved on to some other stuff. Why don't you sort of walk me through what your career has been for... Oh, before we get started, can I just say,
Sure.
If you're watching this on YouTube, go to askthemyourself.com because you can call in if you want to ask Jeff questions later on in the show, and we may be having some special guests call in. You never know. So, Jeff...
When you cut to me, I can't hear you, just FYI. I think you asked me to introduce myself, so I'll do it from the beginning. So actually, we worked together, David, you and I, in my first job out of college at a company called Satori Entertainment. So I started off my career in film and television, spent about 14 years in that industry, and then got involved in video and computer games. And from there, mobile content, and became an entrepreneur and started a couple of companies in Florida, where I currently reside, and then got involved in the domain name industry. Currently, I'm the CMO for .club Domains, which is one of the new top-level domain extensions, an alternative to .com or .biz or .org.
What does that mean exactly, Jeff?
So the letters to the right of the dot, like .com or .biz or .org, that's the top level domain. So my company, we applied for the rights to use .club as a top level domain. So just like you can have a web address that ends in .com or .biz, you can now get one that ends in .club. And as you may have noticed, if you go to GoDaddy or Network Solutions or Namecheap, there are a lot of brand new domain name extensions that are available now. And a lot of them have meaning, just like club means something, so do some of the other extensions. So you could create a domain name that has meaning on both sides of the dot.
Now, this was a big deal for you guys, right? When you started putting this together. I mean, it's not a small thing to get a domain.
No, it took 2 years and literally millions of dollars to get the rights from an organization called ICANN, which is the arbiter of the namespace on the internet. So we had to apply for the rights, and then it turned out that 2 other companies had also applied for the rights to .club, and eventually we won those rights in an auction. So it took 2 years and literally millions of dollars.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. Now, what was your path to making this happen?
Well, when I look back at my career, since you were kind enough to introduce me as being old,
you are.
I would look at my career as a long
old.
and winding road. Well, as old as I am, you're equally old. So there you have
that's a good point.
But I've always kind of gone with the flow. As I mentioned, I started off in film and television, but I've always let my interests kind of drive my career. So as a bit of a gadget geek, even when I was in entertainment, I was very interested in computers in the early days of the IBM PC, and in the introduction of the early days of video and computer games. I was very interested in kind of the convergence of traditional entertainment with interactive entertainment. And that kind of led me down the path of joining a company in Florida that was in the video and computer game business, a company called GameTech. And that's when I left TROMA. I left TROMA in 1994 to join GameTech and get in more directly into interactive entertainment instead of traditional entertainment. And from there, I worked for another game company called Intracorp Entertainment. And there I had the chance to work with William Shatner, Captain Kirk, on his Tech War games, and that was a lot of fun. I've got a lot of good Captain Kirk stories for you Star Trek fans out there.
Well, tell me. Don't just leave it there. What was it like working with William Shatner?
Well, it was great. He's a terrific guy. He really is. He's got a great sense of humor and extremely funny, a very talented guy. And we had a lot of fun. I got to go on the East and West Coast press tours for the game with him, and went backstage at the Tonight Show and Howard Stern show, and accompanied Mr. Shatner at all these different occasions, which was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Now, what's he like? What's he like to work with?
He's great. Like I said, he's very funny. I'll tell you one story. I've got a lot. Well, people get very, he's so famous, and Captain Kirk is such a seminal character. We were out to dinner once with a very important client in the game industry at a very exclusive French restaurant in Manhattan. And, they come around with the little bread basket and the tongs, and they put the bread on your plate. And the young man who was handling the bread basket, halfway through the tong, realized he was serving bread to Captain Kirk and just completely freaked out. He started shaking. The bread was flying all over the place, and he starts going, ka-ka-ka-ka, ka-ka-ka-ka, and he's pointing at him like, ka-ka-ka-ka-ka. And poor Mr. Shatner is like shaking his head, like, please don't do this, please. And finally the maitre d' had to come, like, literally kind of drag the poor young man away, who was just blubbering, Captain Kirk, Captain Kirk.
Was that you?
It was quite funny. It was not me.
Oh.
That's my rendition of the young man serving.
Of the young man serving. Yes, that's so funny. That's so funny. So let's go back to the stuff that the people are going to want to hear. You wrote a book called Everything
I Know About Business and Marketing I Learned from the Toxic Avenger. Subtitle, One Man's Journey to Hell's Kitchen and Back.
What led you to write that?
Well, working for TROMA for 7.5 years, back in the early formative part of my career, was actually an amazing experience. And I learned a lot of things working with TROMA, working with Lloyd and Michael and the TROMA team that stuck with me throughout my career. And here, 20 some odd years later, when I look back on various things I've succeeded with in my career, I can attribute a lot of it to lessons I learned working for Troma. And I thought most marketing books are kind of boring. You know, they give little case studies and this and that. And I thought, here's an opportunity to tell some of these great behind the scenes stories of Tromaville and take these crazy times making these wild and crazy movies and extract some real world examples that people can use for any business they're in, and real lessons of value, literally for any business, but presented in a fun and entertaining way, because they're all based upon making these crazy movies.
Okay, well, based on that, okay, you work for two guys who are kind of legendary in the field of horror, up there with Roger Corman and people of that. Tell me a little bit about the two guys who hired you and the day. Tell me about how you met them and what happened when you walked in.
Yeah, so first of all, if you're not familiar with Troma, so Troma is literally the oldest running independent film studio on the planet. They're celebrating, I think, their 43rd year in business right now, which is remarkable, especially in the entertainment industry where there's been so much consolidation over the years. And it was started by two Yale graduates, Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Hers. Very much a yin and yang partnership where Lloyd is kind of a little bit out there, if I do say so myself, and Michael is a much more, straightforward conservative businessman, actually a lawyer by trade. But yet together they created this fiefdom that they completely control, that lives outside the Hollywood norms, and they've created a world for themselves, Tromaville, where they can do whatever their creative muse tells them. And they're not really beholden to the studio system. They're not beholden to anyone other than themselves. And it's been an amazing thing that's lasted for 43 years and built a huge community of fans and really built Troma as a brand amongst film studios, where typically there isn't a brand except perhaps Disney, and Marvel now. But other than that, people don't go to a movie because it's a Paramount Pictures movie. They go to see a particular star or a particular director or a particular story, whereas Troma fans will go to see a movie simply because it's a Troma movie.
Now tell me about Lloyd and give me the real inside dirt.
Lloyd is, when I first met Lloyd and Michael, they were screamers. And hey, who's that? He's here. Oh, I can't say what I was about to say now. I'll get myself into trouble.
Welcome to the show, Lloyd Kaufman. The legendary.
Oh. Lloyd has my mentor with him. There's Toxie.
Well, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Oh, you can't hear me, right?
That's a problem, huh?
No problem. It's good you can't hear me. It's better.
No, we can hear you.
We can hear you just fine.
All I can tell you is Jeff Sass played a very important role in the creation of the Troma subversive cult following that we have. Jeff Sass helped us be visionary and I think was a very important. The Jeff Sass imprint was all over the Troma earth, shall we say?
Did he teach you how to hold a camera steady? This is the key question.
Well, we made Troma's war together. I'm trying to make sure my thumb is not in the front of the lens here.
That's the first for Troma, I think.
Yeah.
Well, look, Toxie's here. Look at Toxie.
Hello, Toxie.
Jeff Sass supervised all the cartoons. Jeff and I wrote the cartoons together, some of them, and there's Toxie. He's still somewhere.
But that's one of the remarkable accomplishments of Troma, was to take this character, the Toxic Avenger. And for those of you who are not familiar, the Toxic Avenger is a heartwarming story of Melvin, a lowly mop boy who falls into a vat of toxic chemicals and emerges as a hideously deformed creature of superhuman size and strength, aka the Toxic Avenger. And the original Toxic Avenger movie is an R-rated, pretty graphic, pretty raw film, and we managed to take that character and turn it into a Saturday morning cartoon show, and turn the Toxic Avenger into the Toxic Crusaders, and really infect the minds of young children everywhere with this hideously deformed creature.
It is really quite astonishing that that you were able to turn this into a real franchise beyond what you had originally thought. Isn't that true, Lloyd?
Well, you should read you should read Jeff Sass's book because
I heard you wrote a book,
it's
Jeff.
all about how this is a movie in which a 13-year-old boy has his head squashed by the wheel of an automobile, and in large part thanks to Jeff Sass, it was made into a Saturday morning environmentally correct cartoon show. Jeff's book is really good. Anyone who's interested in creating a brand or just getting the word out to the public, I read the book. It's extremely entertaining also.
Well, thank you, Lloyd. And then the foreword by Lloyd Kaufman is very good as well. But in all seriousness, I do share a lot of the stories of behind the scenes and how we went through this process and how we got involved in the licensing and merchandising industry. And it's really amazing because when you think about it, I don't think there's another character that's had more varied iterations than the Toxic Avenger, even Mickey Mouse, because the Toxic Avenger has been the star of an R-rated movie. He's been a Saturday morning cartoon show. He's been Marvel Comics. He's been an off-Broadway show. There's a very successful off-Broadway musical that's been touring the world and doing extremely well based on the Toxic Avenger. So this amazing character that Lloyd and Michael created has gone on through more iterations, perhaps, than any other literary character I can think of.
I would like to take a moment and show our audience the Toxic Avenger, if you guys don't mind. So let's take a look at the trailer for the Toxic Avenger.
Meet little Melvin. He's a 90-pound weakling. Everyone hated Melvin.
I'm gonna take this mop and shove it down your throat.
They teased him.
I wanna do it with you. Okay.
They taunted him. They tormented him until he had a horrifying accident and fell into a vat of nuclear waste, transforming little Melvin into a hideously deformed creature of superhuman size and strength. Melvin became the Toxic Avenger, the first superhero born out of nuclear waste. Yes, the muggers and the rapists didn't know what law and order was until the Toxic Avenger came to town.
Holy shit! I don't know what it was, but it saved my life. All right, everybody, drop your tacos or I'll blow your brains out.
The vandals and the perverts had their way with the little people of Tromaville until the Toxic Avenger ripped them apart. The Toxic Avenger. His face is so terrifying. We can't show it to you now. You'll have to see the movie for yourself. The Toxic Avenger can bend steel with his bare hands.
Oh, we're all a kid. Get it?
Leap small cars in a single bound. He crushes drug pushers. Smashes hit-and-run drivers. And gives all criminals their just desserts. The Toxic Avenger.
He was a hero.
He's a hero.
Wow.
He's a fighter. He's a lover.
Well, Melvin, you're beautiful.
The good citizens love him. The fat and corrupt hate him.
Kill that bastard for me. You gotta kill him.
Yeah.
Will he survive? For incredible, explosive action, you must see the Toxic Avenger. He's a different kind of hero. Toxic Avenger is coming to your town. Look out.
Well, you guys anticipated the Marvel Revolution decades before it happened, I think. Lloyd, what do you think watching this all these years later? Are you trying to hypnotize us?
Well, I tell you, Jeff Sass, you know, the famous poster of the Toxic Avenger, the slogan, first superhero from New Jersey, talk about marketing, that's Jeff Sass. I had something in there like superhero with a mom. And Jeff Sass said, nobody's going to see that movie. Why don't you call it First Superhero from New Jersey? And that was the best. And so Jeff's book is got a lot more anecdotes like that.
No, there's a chapter about that, about coming up with that new tagline for the film. And a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff on the set of Toxic Avenger 2 and 3, and a lot of good stories behind there. But a lot of lessons that we learned. You know, Lloyd, you know, is, despite his hoodie and kind of scary look at the moment, he's actually quite the brand genius and really a great marketer. And a lot of the lessons I learned, which I talk about in the book, are things that you can apply to literally, you know, any business that you might be involved in. It's not just limited to the film industry.
Right. Totally true. Lloyd, what lessons did you learn from Jeff Sass?
Well, I learned a lot about the technology. Jeff was always way ahead of the. In fact, Jeff got me onto CompuServe.
He was way ahead.
Yeah, that was Jeff Sass. And there was a night when I was on with Roger Ebert, and Roger Ebert said that this is Lloyd Kaufman. He's the only studio head who's on the internet, and that's all thanks to Jeff Sass.
Yeah, we were doing back in 1992 and 93 on CompuServe, we were doing live chats with Toxie. So people could log on to the Showbiz forum on CompuServe and have a conversation with the Toxic Avenger. And of course, obviously, it was one of us posing as the Toxie. But, you know, today we live in a world where every celebrity, every fictional character has a Twitter account, and fans in the millions can engage with them. We actually were probably among the first to ever do that before even the World Wide Web, as it's known today.
That's totally true.
That's true. Yes, and in fact, David, Jeff and I were the first to have a sex tape. We had it way before the Kardashians, way before Pamela Anderson. And, you know, the independents never get credit for our visionary work.
There's nothing like those black and white standard definition sex tapes.
Yeah.
I told Jeff
Fortunately, there are no longer machines that are capable of playing that tape. So
but they were 2-inch tapes, so we're dating ourselves, gentlemen.
It's obsolete, completely obsolete.
Whoops.
There goes Toxic.
This is live. This is live.
But one of the things that there's a chapter about in the book that's interesting that was very much Lloyd's doing is he had a rule at TROMA that in any correspondence you had to say we, and you always had to start everything with greetings from Tromaville, and it was always we. You literally were not allowed to use I. You could never say I in any type of business correspondence. So if you were sending a letter to someone or eventually an email, it was always we. We want to meet you. We want to see your movie. We want to have lunch with you. Never I. And that's actually a lesson that really resonated with me. And even to this day, I prefer when I'm writing business correspondence to say we, because if you're in business, just like making a film, it's a very collaborative process. There are very few things, unless you're truly a sole proprietor, there are very few things that you do at work that you do completely alone. You always have help from teammates, you have help from employees or your employer, and to say I did this and I did that is often disingenuous. You know, we've all been in that meeting where someone stands up and says, well, I did this and I did that, and everyone else in the room is scratching their head and saying, well, wait a minute, I was a part of that project. I contributed to that. So this idea of always saying we and always being inclusive and being one to give credit to your team members, I think is a very important lesson. It's something that really stuck with me all these years.
I'm very happy to hear you say that, Jeff, because now Lloyd and I can say that we wrote your book.
Exactly.
And we'll be waiting for our residuals.
We were all there, so we were all part of the process.
Jeff Sass wrote a lot of stuff that I've taken credit for, right? You wrote Sergeant Kaufman NYPD, or you had a hell of a for Sergeant Kaufman NYPD, but Jeff Sass a lot more of the credit.
But even there's a chapter in the book about it, and something happened. You always have to be ready for the unexpected. And if you're trying to do things creatively, you never know where inspiration is going to come from. So when we were writing Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD, we were actually working out of Lloyd's house on 87th Street, and it was very hot. It was the summertime, so the window was open, so it was a little bit noisy. And all of a sudden, we heard a car alarm go off. And so we look out the window, and we see a guy smashing a window and breaking into a car right down on the street below us. So we run downstairs and start chasing the guy away. And of course, we didn't know what else to do. We just ran down the block and he ran away, and the two of us are left there looking like idiots. But we walked back in the house and suddenly had this inspiration to add a scene to the movie about breaking into a car. And so if you watch Kabuki Man, there's a running gag throughout the movie where, these signs people put in their cars, baby on board, those yellow signs. So the car is parked and it's got baby on board. Then the guy smashes it and he takes out the radio, and then it has a sign on it. He adds a sign that says no radio on board. And then a few months later, you see a scene in the movie and they smash the same car and they take the tires off, and now it says no tires on board. And by the end of the film, there's a dozen yellow signs on the car and it's up on blocks with nothing left. So that gag was inspired by actually witnessing a car get broken into.
What was it like What was it like on the sets of your movies? I mean, it on screen it's mayhem, but you're working on a shoestring budget, and basically it's what's left of the shoestring that's been tied together.
Well, wait a minute. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Jeff Sass did not call it shoestring. Jeff Sass said we were in the more technological age, and that we were working on the Velcro kind of budget.
That's true.
Correct?
We had Velcro budgets. We had a little bit of success, and we advanced from shoestrings to Velcro.
Just want to, I like to be correct.
Absolutely.
I don't want Jeff Sass to get a reputation.
It seems like Velcro is probably really too high tech for what you guys were doing, isn't it?
Yeah, but the truth is, David, and it's actually another interesting lesson that's in the book, is even making a low budget, extremely low budget film, there's a certain discipline that's required in filmmaking that many businesses could benefit from today, because every single day has to be scheduled. We're working on a schedule. Because we were a low budget operation, we couldn't afford to go into a studio. So most of our filming was done on location. We'd get permission to shoot in different places for free. Oftentimes that was outdoors because it was great production values. But you have to learn to always have a backup plan, because if you're planning a scene outdoors, you can't control the weather. So you have to be prepared if it should rain that day or something should go awry. Every day you have scheduled exteriors. You have to have a backup set inside somewhere that's nearby that you could go to, that generally use the same actors and actresses, so that you always had a backup plan. So that kind of day-to-day discipline that even a low-budget independent film is required to have is something that in business I think we often forget about. In business we have deadlines, but they're typically not daily deadlines. They're quarterly or monthly or annually. So we spend a lot of time doing stuff and feeling productive, but actually we're not really moving things forward. Whereas on a movie set, on a certain day, that might be the only day you could ever go to that location, or the only day you have that actor or actress available. So if you don't get everything shot that day that you need, you're out of luck. So I think that kind of discipline is very helpful and could be applied to other businesses, not just filmmaking.
Well, there's also the other aspect of it, which is a lot of times more creativity is needed when you don't have money to throw at a problem.
That makes Lloyd the most creative person on the planet.
Well, but David brings up a good point. The fact that you have to deliver a $20 million movie for $500,000, it's kind of liberating, because a lot of it, as Jeff will remember when we made Troma Score, a lot of it we had to kind of
We're losing. Oh, we're losing. This is high tech also, by the way. This is
By the way,
Lloyd did tell you he's shooting this from the he's calling in from the Titanic here. Okay, Lloyd,
exactly. I'm going to have to go, but may I say that Jeff's book is really good.
It is really good. I've read it.
And indeed, and you'll see that anyone who's interested in this, branding or establishing identity in marketing, unfortunately, I can't establish. So
Lloyd?
the book is really, really good, and thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Thanks
you
for
very
coming
much.
on, Lloyd. And I think what I'm going to have to do is buy you a tripod.
No, I think you should kill me. But I think
All right. Thank you very much, Lloyd Kaufman. And Lloyd is gone. So, Jeff,
All right.
it is just you and me now. I'm going to go take a moment, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at another Troma trailer. And give me just a second. I'll call it up right here. And let's take a look at this one.
Way back beyond the future, in a land before time began, the day after has become the day before. The Tromaville of the future has become a dinosaur hell. In this dinosaur hell, there is only one type of being that can survive: a barbarian. And what kind of barbarian? Why, a nymphoid barbarian. A nymphoid barbarian in dinosaur hell. Across a hostile landscape, humans battle for supremacy against mutants. Deadly dinosaurs have arisen from nuclear holocaust, and all of them are hot for a nymphoid barbarian in dinosaur hell. Yes, for the first time ever, the prehistoric meets the prepubescent. She's the last womanoid in the Tromaville of tomorrow, and she's wanted by men and mutant alike. She's a nymphoid barbarian in dinosaur hell. Starring international cult heroine Linda Corwin as the nymphoid barbarian. Not since Raquel Welch in 1 million years BC has one woman had to face such a fearsome collection of rabid reptiles. You've seen the Brontosaurus, the Tyrannosaurus, but you won't believe your eyes when you come face to face with the Tromosaurus. Only the TROMA team could bring you the incredible state-of-the-art special effects from internationally acclaimed effects wizards Brett Piper and Alex Perney, the masterminds behind a nymphoid barbarian in dinosaur hell. You'll swear you are watching the real thing. A nymphoid barbarian in dinosaur hell. Primitive, brutal, horrifying, lust-crazed inhuman monsters, all battling over one beautiful, seductive, tantalizing prize. A nymphoid barbarian in dinosaur hell. She's the heroine every woman wants to be. The courage of a lioness, the hunting skills of an Amazon, and all the beauty of a fine young nymphoid. Only one man will possess the ultimate weapon. But no man can ever possess a nymphoid barbarian in dinosaur hell. You must see a nymphoid barbarian in dinosaur hell. The prehistoric and the prepubescent together at last.
Well, Jeff Sass, let's talk about that for a second. Did you catch the
was
title?
What was the name? I didn't catch it. What was the name of that movie?
I wasn't paying
Did it say
attention.
it?
So that was a movie that Troma acquired way back in the day. Tell me a little bit about that, although in a way it's sort of, I could probably tell that story myself, but why don't you get started?
Yeah, so David, full disclosure, you actually created that trailer for that film back in the day, so good job on that.
Well, thank you.
You know, it's interesting, we talked today a lot about repurposing content, and Troma actually was doing that, many moons ago. A lot of times we would take student films or other 16 millimeter films that may not even have been completed, and then we would fix them up a bit in editing, slap a new title on them, put together a great trailer like that, and then release them. And this was back at a time where the home video market was really burgeoning on a global basis. So there was a strong demand for lots of different types of content that wasn't necessarily available in theaters because people had to fill this home video pipeline in the early days of VHS and Betamax and when home video was just beginning.
Well, there was
a lot of opportunities to get these, low budget films out there.
There was another aspect to that as well, which is that people didn't have cameras. I mean, this right now, this is a video camera. Right now you're talking to me on your phone, and that wasn't available 30 years ago or 20. So anybody who had the wherewithal to scrape the money together and a camera and editing, it wasn't like it is now. It really took a lot of money. Even just doing a small, tiny little film, doing this was unheard of, let alone finding a place to put them. There was no YouTube that people could put them on. There was nothing like that. And I think that for people who were just beginning, well, let's talk about that, because there were people who were just beginning their careers, and there are a few people who started out at Troma. Before you say who they were, we're going to take a break, but I'm going to play a little bit of a clip which has the bumpers on it from a show that was done years ago. Let me see if I can track this down for a second. Let's see. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to take a... Don't forget, if you're watching right now, and I know there's absolutely no one watching, you can watch it. There is no one watching, Jeff. I can tell you, there are 4 people watching, and my guess is that 2 of them work for the company that I'm working with right now, which is allowing us to do this. So which is the VCC, the Video Call Center, and I got to give them a shout out. I got to give a shout out to Alex and Will and Johnny for helping get us on the air tonight, right in the nick of time, and allowing us to take in a call from Lloyd Kaufman. And if anybody else wants to call, if there's anybody who wants to ask questions of Jeff Sass now that Lloyd is gone, and you can ask what Jeff really thinks of Lloyd, we can do that. But I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to play this bumper and a little trailer for the people who think they want to call in, if anybody wants to call in, and then we'll talk about it on the other side. Ready?
Ready.
Hi, welcome to Pop Goes the Culture. Thanks for calling in. While you're waiting to be brought on the air, set up your computer or your phone or tablet properly to get the best possible picture and sound. We want you to look your best. You're going to be on TV. First, find a quiet spot with not a lot of noise, preferably away from the kids, pets, and traffic. If you have a headset, that will give you the best sound. If you're on your computer camera, don't lean in. Sit back and relax so that you're framed the same way you see people on TV, head and shoulders. You might even want to raise your computer up so that it's level with your face. Put it on a box or a book and make sure it's stable. If you're using a cell phone, see if you can get a simple cell phone tripod. They're easy to set up. If you don't have a tripod, no worries. Set the camera for selfies. Hold the phone about arm's distance from your face. Make sure it's landscape or horizontal, not portrait or vertical. Try to keep the camera level, not too high, not too low. Make sure you can see your whole face and maybe shoulders in the frame. Next, find a nice light in front of you. Never sit in front of a bright window or light source. Turn around until you find the best light and background and the shot is looking attractive. This is a good shot. This one, not so much. Don't put your head too high or too low in the shot. Your eyes should be about 1/3 down from the top of the frame. Okay, now you're looking and sounding your best, and you're ready for your close-up. Keep watching, and maybe we'll be bringing you on the show soon.
How's that?
That's better.
Okay. What are the answers that we that to those early questions? Do you remember the question?
Question was who were some people who were in Troma movies, right? Who were celebrities?
Who were some people who actually I think won Academy Awards? Was that what it was?
It might have been. So what, do you want me to give the answers, or you're going to reveal the answers?
Give me the answers.
I'll give you one. One was Kevin Costner, who was in Sizzle Beach, USA, an early Troma film. Another who was Marissa Tomei,
right?
Who was also had a brief appearance in an early Troma movie.
What was she in? I think she was in Toxic. Wasn't she in Toxic Avenger?
She might have been in one scene in Toxic. Yeah, I don't recall exactly, but it might have been that.
Oliver Stone.
Oliver Stone was in The Battle of Love's Return, which is one of Lloyd's early films. And then subsequent to that, other people have given Troma a lot of credit for their start in film, which is pretty interesting. So, for example, when I left Troma in 1994, they hired someone to ostensibly replace me, and that was a kid named James Gunn. And, of course, if you're familiar with Guardians of the Galaxy and many other great films, that's the same James Gunn, and he often gives Lloyd and Troma credit for giving him his start in film. So,
and I saw Lloyd was in one of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
Yes, he made a cameo, and Lloyd tries to make cameos in a lot of movies. In fact, before Troma was formally started, Lloyd worked on the original Rocky film, and he has had a cameo, I think, in every Rocky film through the sixth one, I believe.
Is that true?
That is true.
I did not know that. All these things that we could have been asking him.
Yeah, he was very close with John Appleton, who passed away recently.
Passed away recently,
yeah.
Wow, that's great. And you had people would show up to the offices every now and then, didn't you?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people in Hollywood, in some respects, were kind of jealous of Lloyd and Michael because they didn't have to play by the same rules, because they had created this world where they could do it pretty much whatever they wanted. And we had a lot of well-known celebrities who would stop by when they were in New York at various stages of their career. There was a time when Madonna was vying very heavily for a role in an early Troma film called The First Turn On, and stupidly, they did not give her the part. And then she went on to become Madonna. We had Mike Judge came in and showed us Beavis and Butthead shortly after he had sold it to MTV. That was pretty fun. So we've had a lot of different celebrities come through over the years and would visit us at the Cannes Film Festival. Everyone from Peter Jackson to Quentin Tarantino. All of these people are fans of Troma in their own way and would often stop by to see us and say hello.
Should we take a look at another movie?
Sure.
Okay.
Whole thing?
Well, Just let's take a look and see what else we've got over here. I've got a couple of things ready for us. Hold on, let me see what we got here. Here's one you'll like.
It began as a dream in peaceful paradise. It ended as a nightmare on a barrel house battlefield. They were average people, just like you and me.
Little fella gonna be okay?
Until their vacation was cut short by a tragic plane crash.
Whoever was flying that crate was an asshole.
Stranded on an island full of ruthless international terrorists, these helpless civilians are hunted down like animals. They are captured, tortured. They are driven to the very limits of human endurance until they declare war.
Let's kick some butt!
Troma's War. It's the biggest, the most ambitious, the most expensive motion picture in the 15-year history of Troma films. Troma's War deals with today's burning social issues. Psychotic Siamese twins lead ferocious fascist pigs. Now, it's up to a few good citizens to stop this diabolical military threat.
Just point me in the right direction. I'll blow their balls off. This is war!
You must see Troma's War. It's the most explosive, thrill-packed, death-defying, stunt-filled action film you will ever witness. Troma's War makes Rambo 3 look like Lassie Come Home. Variety. A Troma extravaganza. Positively upscale. The New York Post. Troma's War. Rated R.
Really, rated R. I'm stunned.
That was definitely an R-rated trailer, but a lot of lessons in that trailer in actuality. Because when you think about it, you see all those explosions and everything. You know, normally it's very expensive, very complicated to do that. Almost all of that film was shot in 2 locations, both of which were provided to us by the New York State Governor's Film Commission. You know, there are many resources out there for filmmakers, and I think it's a lesson for any business. There's probably resources in whatever industry you're in that you can take advantage of. So we knew we wanted to do a lot of gunfights and a lot of explosions in Troma's War. And obviously doing that in residential areas is pretty much impossible.
That'd be bad.
So we ended up getting permission to film at Camp Smith, which is in Peekskill, New York, and it's a National Guard training camp. So obviously as a training camp for the military and the National Guard, they have the facilities to do explosions, they have their own fire trucks on site, and it's a secure, safe area. So we were able to turn that into the battlefields of Troma's War, and we were able to do all those explosions and all those gun battles and everything else in a very contained and safe environment and without paying for it, you know, other than permits and other stuff. So it was a really terrific thing. And the same thing with those beautiful beach scenes. Those were shot at Comset State Park out on Long Island, which is a very secluded park on a little peninsula called, funnily enough, Lloyd's Neck. And so it was great because it was a peninsula, we were able to get a certain angle where it looked like you were on a deserted island where there's no view of any buildings or any power lines or any kind of traces of civilization, which was kind of hard to do in New York. So it worked out very well. And again, you know, scouting for locations when you have no money is a big part of the process, because if you find the right locations, you know, for free or for a very low cost, it can really raise the production values of the film.
True enough. What was the cost of that film?
I don't recall the exact budget, and even if I did, I'm probably sworn to secrecy. But
well, there's a statute of limitations.
We made films for substantially less than the cost of food on the set of a typical Hollywood movie.
Well, what was the cost of food? What kind of food? What is the? Walk me through a little bit of a day on one of those. What was the food like? What were the people like? How long was the day?
Well, the day was often as long as sunrise to sunset, because when you're shooting outside, you want to get every little bit of daylight that you can, including kind of magic hour at the end of the day when you can get some very beautiful shots of sunsets and the orange sky and all that stuff. When we were shooting at Camp Smith, it was great because part of the deal we made was our crew and cast actually stayed on the barracks on the premises. So it was kind of like a big trip to summer camp where pretty much everyone was living on site in the Army barracks. And so it was a little bit crazy. So it was very, very interesting, very bonding experience.
A lot of fun. What was it, like a 25-day shooting schedule, I think you said in the book?
Yeah, typically, you know, we would shoot for, you know, anywhere from, you know, probably 6 to 8 weeks at the max, you know, sometimes less. And a lot of work went in beforehand, you know, pre-production. Again, even with a low-budget film, maybe especially with a low-budget film, there's a lot of pre-production, a lot of preparation in advance. All of the sets have to be designed, the costumes have to be made, the schedule has to be done, so that by the time you're actually filming, you know, everything should run like clockwork. Of course, it never does, but it should.
Right. So you're doing film, you're having fun, you're enjoying, you're working at Troma, which, as you said, for a lot of people was envy. It's probably not the great...
Fun is relative. It's fun now as I look back at it, but at the time, I mean, in that particular film, Troma's War, I quit in the middle of it. I was at my wit's end. I literally couldn't take it anymore, and I quit. And Lloyd and Michael literally begged me to come back, and eventually I did. But it was just a lot of stress. It was crazy time.
I bet it was. How long did you work there altogether?
7.5 years.
It's a long time, especially
Yes.
you were really young, so that was a huge percentage
one dog
of your
year.
career. 1 dog year. So, what led you to move on to other things? I mean, how did it finish up there?
Well, so it was interesting because we had this amazing opportunity that I talked about earlier, when we had this opportunity to turn the Toxic Avenger into a cartoon series, and with that came all the things that were popular at that time, really coming off of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So we did a toy deal, we did comic book deals. I set up a licensing division, or we set up a licensing division, and we did deals with 70 manufacturers worldwide, from comic books to coloring books to pajamas to computer and video games. And so what happened was I was dealing with the computer and video games for the Toxic Crusaders. And as someone who is interested in computers and technology, I became fascinated by this convergence of traditional entertainment and interactive entertainment. And one interesting thing is, while we were doing the licensing and merchandising for the Toxic Crusaders, we established all these great relationships with manufacturers. And I realized that, maybe we could do other properties, not just the Toxic Crusaders, since we were now in this licensing world. So we started looking for other properties that we could represent. And we actually ended up making a deal with Reading Rainbow, the Emmy Award-winning show on PBS, for Troma, the same company behind the Toxic Avenger, to actually represent Reading Rainbow for licensing and merchandising. I think making that deal is still one of the highlights of my career, because it's just so bizarre. In what universe could Troma and Reading Rainbow even be said in the same sentence, let alone have the same company representing it?
Right.
So we were doing the licensing deals for Reading Rainbow, and we made a deal with a company called Game Tech in Florida to do educational CD-ROMs. CD-ROMs were just starting to come out back then. And I went down to meet with them a few times to work on the Reading Rainbow project, and became fascinated with what they were doing. And I liked the people. I was really interested in that space, in that world of games. And one thing led to another, and an opportunity arose for me to leave Troma and join that company and really get involved firsthand in video and computer games, which I was very interested in at the time. So that's kind of what led to my departure.
Got it. Wow, Jeff, we've covered a lot of stuff today. We've been talking for a while. No one besides Lloyd has called in, but I mean, if you're gonna have somebody call in, he's a good one.
Well, I think that don't diminish the experimentation going on here. This is a great platform you've got, David, where we can do a live talk show over the internet, but more than just people calling in, people could be on screen. And as you know, most podcasts and online shows, they're done in a vacuum, and then they go on afterwards, and people watch it after the fact, which of course, if you're watching this now, you might be watching it after we've recorded it. But going forward, you should stay tuned to Pop Goes the Culture, and stay tuned to what David is doing with AskThemYourself.com, because this is a great, taste of what the future will bring, where you can have a more of an interactive live experience instead of just watching things after they've been recorded. So yeah, I appreciate being a part of it.
No, thank you, Jeff. I mean, we want to bring people on. If people want to see more of this kind of thing, they should definitely check out the VCC.TV. I think it is. Let me check real quick. Talk about something, Jeff. I'm going to go check my website.
Sure. Well, I would like to remind you that if you enjoyed any of this, even a minuscule amount of this talk tonight, you ought to go out and get a copy of my book. You can find it on Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble or wherever books are sold. And a shortcut to get right to the book on Amazon is go to www.toxicavenger.marketing.
I can make
it
even
domain name tip.
I can make it even easier than that, because I put a link on the YouTube channel that beautiful. If you're watching this on YouTube or on Facebook, there's a link below us that's and click on that, and it goes right to your thing.
Perfect. But that's a little bit of a marketing tip I'll share as well. We talked in the beginning of the show about .club and some of the new domain name extensions. So there's actually a .marketing extension. So I want people to go to Amazon to buy my book, and I want to make it as easy as possible. Instead of telling you go to Amazon, search for my name or search for the title of the book, the URL for my book page on Amazon is amazon.com/blah, blah, blah. It's something I could never use in marketing.
Right.
So instead, I registered the name toxicavenger.marketing, which is relevant to the title of the book, and I simply have that redirect right to the book's page on Amazon.
That's
so
awesome.
Now when I'm marketing the book, I just say go to toxicavenger.marketing. It's short, it's easy to remember, it's relevant to the book, and it takes you right to literally one click away from buying the book. So that's a tip. You can get a great domain name now, whether it's .club or something else that has meaning, that's memorable. A lot of people use .club and point it to their Facebook page, for example, because that's their community. And it's a great way to do a shortcut for marketing purposes.
What are you doing next, Jeff? What's the thing you're working on now that excites you the most? Because you're very entrepreneurial.
Well, I'm working actually on the Audible book for my book, because I released it in Kindle version and paperback, but I haven't released the audiobook yet. So I'm working on that right now. And, I've got a lot of interesting stuff going on with .club. We're actually launching a tech incubator in Fort Lauderdale, which will be called Startups.club. The building is being renovated right now. We'll probably open up in the late summer. And we're actually going to turn that into a little TV show itself. So we're going to be setting up cameras inside the facility, and we're going to be chronicling in a docuseries type fashion the journey of about a dozen or 10 or 12 startups that are working out of the space. So that should be pretty interesting and a lot of fun as well.
Everybody's in showbiz.
Everybody.
And by the way,
everything old is new again, right? I started my career doing this stuff, and now I'm kind of circling back and doing it all over again.
Bring it all together. And for the people who want to do their own versions of a show like this, where you can have people call in and multiple people call in and talk to each other, check out the bcc.tv. It is a great way to do highly technical, multiple people talking to each other on TV at the same time and bringing them in via their cell phone, via FaceTime or Skype or whatever. And it's a really, really cool thing. And when it works, it really works great. Today it worked pretty well, actually. Jeff, thank you so much. I look forward to talking to you again, and maybe I can get Lloyd to actually have a coherent conversation with me one day, because I would love...
Well, that'll be a first.
I would love to get him to talk about his early days doing TROMA and what they're up to these days.
Well, we should reverse roles. You should have Lloyd on as the primary guest, and then I will call in and make him seasick with a wobbly.
Yeah, TROMA. They should have invested in a tripod, I think.
Yeah. That's right. Well, thank you very much, David. I appreciate it. Again, you can find my book at toxicavenger.marketing. You can find me at jeffreysass.com or jeffreysass.club or on Twitter at Sass. And I appreciate you taking the time to watch us today, and hope you'll enjoy the book. Exactly.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And I'm going to show one more thing before we go, and then we'll be gone. All right. So this was something amazing. Talk a little bit for a second about the TROMA system infomercial.
The TROMA system infomercial, which David worked on as an editor, and which I wrote and directed and produced with Lloyd and Michael, was actually a spoof of infomercials that literally was an infomercial at the same time. So it was very meta, and it was actually broadcast on Comedy Central, which is a lot of fun. So we literally did a half-hour infomercial selling something called the TROMA system, which was basically a collection of a videotape of trailers, some posters, some soundtrack music, a sticker. Basically, it was a legitimate collection of TROMA memorabilia that you would buy, but the infomercial itself was a complete spoof of the classic late-night infomercial show, and it was pretty funny, and David did a great job of pulling it together as the editor.
Well, thank you. I also got to do a tiny bit of writing on it. I'm going to show a couple quick things from it, and then we'll say goodbye since we're coming up to the top of the hour. We can round it out nicely. Hold on 1 second. Here we go.
Oh, Auntie Toxie, there's no place like home.
And cut! Brilliant! It's a wrap! Kabuki Man, bring the champagne. Michael, we have got to share this with our fans.
Lloyd, we're having so much fun. How do we bring that fun to our fans in the privacy of their own home?
How about a tape of Troma trailers?
You mean an exclusive, never-before-offered collection of clips and coming attractions from more than 15 Troma movies, such as The Toxic Avenger, Class of Nukem High, An Import Barbarian and Dinosaur Hell, Fertilizer Blast Beaming Bombshell.
Right is, Michael, and it should look something like this.
That's right, Troma fans. Call now to order your exclusive Troma trailer tape featuring coming attractions from your favorite Troma movies.
The Toxic Avenger. The Class of Nukem High.
A Nymphoid Barbarian in Dinosaur Hell.
Combat Shock. Rabid Grannies.
Blood-sucking freaks.
Star Worms 2, Attack of the Pleasure Pods. This tape is not available in stores, so call now and have your credit card ready. Order your Troma trailer tape today and receive as a special bonus a high-quality adhesive-backed I Love Toxic sticker, 2 issues of the TROMA Times newsletter, a Troma movie poster autographed by Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Hers, an official Troma diploma, and an exclusive audio cassette of Troma tunes and theme songs. All your favorite songs from your favorite Troma movies. Forget the Polovetzian dances. This is all the music you'll ever need. Order your Troma trailer tape today and get the cassette of Troma tunes absolutely free.
Let's kick some butt!
Call now and you will receive the sticker, the Troma Times, the autographed poster, the Troma diploma, the audio tape of Troma tunes, and the videotape of Troma trailers, all for one low, low price. Remember, these are not available in stores, so call now and have your credit card ready.
Just point me in the right direction.
It's so dated. It's so of its time.
It is.
And one more.
Polovetzian dances. I remember
the Polovetzian to talk about. Okay, so here we go. One more, and this is it. Hold on.
This has been quite an exciting show for me.
Well, Mike, it's exciting for me, too. And I'm glad that you yourself could benefit from the Troma system, just like our viewers at home can.
Now, this might sound silly, but I can feel myself changing right now, right here in this studio. I'm changing, I'm transforming, becoming Martin Payne. I'm transforming.
I can't believe it. It actually worked. You've really become the ultimate talk show host. Wow, I really have become the ultimate talk show host. Thank you, Trauma System. I've become Joe Franklin. Glad to see you, Joe. Glad to see you. Well, you've seen why there's so much positive energy and excitement over the Trauma System. You've seen the outstanding results Trauma System users have achieved. Now, the big moment. It's here. For the time capsule, for the vault, for the archive. It's my extreme pleasure to introduce at this moment the true masters of the Trauma System. Exciting? Get ready now? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me Mr. Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Hers. Show, and since we're lucky enough to have you two gentlemen with us right now, could you maybe tell our vast audience here and the millions of viewers at home a little bit of the real secret behind the enormous success of the Trauma System?
Well, Joe, as Michael will tell you, it's really the fans. And when Toxie's around...
I'm sure that what you two gentlemen were about to say would be really fascinating to our audience out there, but I got to tell you, Lloyd, my producer was jumping up and down. He's jumping up and down like a rabbit, telling me that we're out of time. So perhaps maybe you two guys might come back for the next edition of the Trauma System program. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining me today on the Trauma Show. And meanwhile, may you live as long as you want, and may you never want as long as you live.
And no better way to say goodbye than to let Joe Franklin take us out. Jeffrey, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
And we'll see you next time. And don't forget, Ask Them Yourself is going to be on again next week. My guest is going to be Joe Raiola, the former senior editor of Mad Magazine. You don't want to miss it. And feel free to call in. You never know who might call in as a guest besides Joe. That would be good. Jeff, thanks a lot.
Thank you, David.
All right.